Oh my gosh, we love our Messiah Complex adaptations.
It's like Dune all over again, but better.
Hello and welcome to Cassette Take with
Anne-Marie! Sorry, I almost said me.
Me,
Anne-Marie.
and Ethan, where you can eject wherever you want, but please don't forget to rewind. And yeah, if you couldn't tell by our wonderful little intro, we have a little Messiah complex here with a few of our main characters for these two shows we're
Our
reviewing.
double feature of the month.
Yeah, so we got Avatar: The Last Airbender,
Mhm.
uh, not to be confused with The Last Airbender, Ong.
Oh.
No association.
I always forget they called him on that movie.
We shouldn't I shouldn't have brought that
No.
up. And then we also have Percy Jackson,
Our seaweed brain.
our seaweed brain.
Wow, isn't it funny that both Avatar: The Last Airbender and Percy Jackson had movies that were like badly received, and then we have these two shows that are badly received? No, I can.
No, I mean I'm not sure if they were both badly received. I mean, we'll get into our
We'll get
thoughts onto
into
it.
it.
But yeah, we decided to put both of these reviews together because again, they have a whole Messiah complex going on. They came out pretty, in succession of each other, and they honestly did have a very similar reception.
Yeah, I would say they're very similar, and I think their faults and their successes are actually very similar to each other. So I'm super excited to talk about this because we have different takes on both of these.
Yeah, I would say so. Although I don't think it's too different with Avatar, but
No.
let's go with the one that came out first,
All right.
and that would be Percy Jackson.
Perseus Jackson.
Now, care to give some insight as to how you and I grew up with Percy?
Yeah, of course. And so when Ethan and I are 25 now, and so when we were like,
Attemptively.
yes, when we were little, we start. Well, I read the book in like elementary school when the movie was announced, and then I saw the movie, and then I got really sad about it. But I love those books so much, and so I started reading all the books, and I went through all the series, Heroes of Olympus, the Apollo series, and everything. And so when they announced it on Disney Plus, I would say that I was pretty like super excited about it. So
Yeah, and honestly, similarly to you, I first read Percy Jackson after seeing the movie. I saw the movie first, and I think
yeah,
it was like in sixth grade. And my brother had read the book, and at the time I'm like, oh yeah, the movie's not bad. Like I thought it was all right.
yeah.
And then my brother's like, no, you gotta read the book. You gotta read the book. This movie is poopy. It's poopy. And so I'm like, okay, I'll read the book. Read the book, and immediately, this is like a core memory for me.
Really?
Yeah, we're at my grandparents' house having a good old fashioned Sunday breakfast with cinnamon rolls and everything. And I'm done. I go finish like reading the last few pages of the book, and then when I'm done, I close the book, sat down on the bed. I marched downstairs to my brother, who's still sitting at the kitchen table, and I just look at him, and he's looking at me, standing in the door frame, and I'm just like, why? And he just laughed his
I
butt
love how
off.
you just were like, why?
Everyone else was confused, but Jacob understood. My brother understood right away.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, but we both really love this series.
Yeah, we like grew up on it, and so it was like super exciting when like not like the movies are, and I think we both have kind of a similar take about the movies. The movies are fine if you don't read the books, but
Yeah, I mean,
once
well,
you,
actually, the second movie is just straight up bad.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't want to talk about that one.
doesn't exist.
Doesn't.
No.
But like the first movie isn't like bad, but then you read it and you're like you
What could
are
have
like
been?
Ethan and you're like why?
Yeah.
So when Disney Plus announced it, I was super excited because one, the author said he was gonna be really heavily involved, and he has criticized that movie to Tartarus and back. He hates
And
that
then
movie.
some.
Yeah, and so I was like super excited, and also like to me like Percy Jackson like it would be cool as a TV series. So they started to announce like the kids who are gonna be in it, the gods and everything, and then it came out.
Yeah, with its allegedly big budget.
Yeah.
And do you want to go first with this, or do you?
Yeah, because we both have like different perspectives on this.
Let's go with the optimistic one.
Yeah, I'll go with optimism. Me first. I will say, I get why you don't like it. Straight up, Ethan doesn't love.
What?
Okay, Ethan doesn't like the show, and I ended up liking the show. I do see its flaws though, and I'm sure we're gonna get into that a little bit more. But I really like these actors that they have, especially like in the behind the scenes stuff. Like Walker, Arian, and Leah are Percy, Grover, and Annabeth. And even on screen, I could really see them. I'm like, this is like Percy, Annabeth, and Grover. Like, I really loved it. And then I think the story, like, I think it's a lot closer to the books than the movies. And so I enjoyed that part of it too. Is it perfect? No. But I think overall it does capture the spirit of Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
Smite it. Just be Zeus and smite this thing to the ground.
If Zeus did any smiting.
Oh gosh.
So
Lance Reddick.
I mean, listen, this show I had so much hope for. I really did.
Yeah.
But after the first episode, I'm like, I didn't like how they handled Mrs. Dodds.
Yeah.
And that kind of was like the first red flag for me.
Oh
And
gosh, that early?
Yeah, and I'm just kind of like, okay, this isn't the best of starts, but it's promising for the most part with like the Minotaur stuff and everything, with how the whole story is getting rolling. I get it, like exposition. You need exposition. There was a lot of that in that episode.
Yeah.
And because it was a 2-episode premiere, right?
Yeah, they played the first two.
Yeah, so the second one also had a lot of exposition. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I guess. So I was expecting, as the show went on, we were going to kind of dial it down on the expository dialogue and then focus on the adventure part, the part of Percy Jackson we love because of the characters getting in these adventures, having to make tough choices and all that, and us discovering all these things and puzzles, you know, and without anyone just handing out information to you left and right. What do? The exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire series, not just like here and there, the entire series. And I was really trying to like this show as it went on, and I'm constantly was like, okay, you know, no matter what, I'm hoping that they get the final bit. I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't read the book or hasn't seen the show yet. But there is a final battle, and that is very famous, and everyone who has read the books love it. And it was not in the movie, which pissed a lot of people off, and that really was behind the strength of my why to my brother. And so I'm like, okay, as long as they do that right, this will be an okay show for me, and that's all I want right now. I want it to be okay and better than the movie. And then we get to the Lotus Hotel episode, like before that, and it was the worst thing I've seen from Disney Plus in a long time.
Yeah, I want to talk about this a little bit more.
Yeah, before we do, though, let me wrap up this quick little strand here of fate and just say that the big fight scene that everyone was looking forward to, it showed a little promise, but dang, it's like they wanted to cut that out and then just focus on exposition again for another setup. And I was very let down by that. I talked to my brother again about it, and he was let down by it. So, I mean, I know there are people out there that probably, like you probably like that part. I mean, and there's a lot of aspects of the show that, again, do have little glimmers of what could have been. But at the end of the day, I was very let down by this show.
So I want to kind of get into that a little bit more because I will be honest, I think this show did fall apart in episode 6 because it did take it, like, they just kept like talking about everything. It was tell, not show. And I guess my question is for you, do you think... I love Rick Riordan. I do. Please don't attack me. Like, I love Mark of Athena. It's, like, my favorite book. Do you think this show was harmed because he was in the writer's room and had... Like, do you think he had a lot of say? Do you think he had a little say?
I think he might have had too much say.
And I gotta agree there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as someone that is a screenwriter, I know for a fact that prose and screenwriting, the formatting, not only itself is different, but the style of writing is also very intensely different. And the whole, like, you need to do a lot more description, but make it very short. And it felt like Riordan didn't really understand that. And no one was going to stop him because they were under the impression, like, oh, he knows what he's doing. Because the fans think they know that he knows what he's doing. And so we're not going to question him. Like a George Lucas prequel situation. Everyone's a yes man. And I don't know if he was the only writer or what the situation was. I didn't really do too much research into the credits. But it did feel like you had a novelist that was very inexperienced with screenwriting trying to explain everything rather than, have the freedom to write. He was more focused on getting the formatting right than getting the story right. And I think that was the biggest issue.
And there's, like, plenty of scenes that kind of go into that. Can we get into spoilers?
I mean,
I like how I asked you.
Yeah, okay.
Can we do spoilers?
Well, first, out of 10 cheeseburgers from God's, what would you give Percy Jackson?
You know what? I think, and we'll kind of get into it, because I do see a lot of potential here. But I will say, like, I see its flaws, and I want to talk about that a little bit more, but, like, I did have fun. Like, I don't know why I had so much fun with it. Maybe it's because I finally got to see it. So I'm going to go, like 6.8.
That's actually lower than I thought you were going to give it.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, maybe 7, but I was like, I can't ignore some of these stuff.
Yeah, if the Lotus episode wasn't in there, I'd probably say it was a 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But honestly, after all that, and this is no fault of the actors, by the way.
No.
I thought the actors were excellent. The casting was brilliant.
Yeah.
And very inspired. But at the end of the day, it was terrible writing and honestly terrible directing as well. And I hope that these people get better and realize that they shouldn't just roll with, what's given to them and just assume that the fans like this guy, so therefore don't question it.
Yeah.
But, I really wanted a lot more of it. But at the end of the day, I got to give it probably 4.
Wow.
Yeah, I really didn't want to. I really wanted to give it a 5 or above. I wanted it batting above.
Yeah.
500, all that. I'm like, but nah, I couldn't. I can't, in good conscience, just give it anything above a 5 or anything like that. So,
oh gosh,
now
spoilers.
Let's go into spoilers.
All right, so I think the exposition of this show is like, I think a lot of people have pointed that out, and the writing of it being flawed. And I am here to stand up for an actress because she was given bad dialogue. I love Leah Jeffries. I think she is Annabeth Chase.
She was wonderful.
She is amazing. And even, like, more than, like, Walker or Arian, I honestly bought her, like, all the behind the scenes. I'm like, that's Annabeth. Like, that is 100% Annabeth. Doesn't matter about her color or her rate, anything like that. She is given the worst dialogue here. They ruin Annabeth Chase. And as one of my favorite characters, remember, big fan of Mark of Athena, all about Annabeth. Why in the world did you not give her anything? Like, you didn't do anything for her in this show. And it's so disappointing because it's literally the same thing Ron and Hermione went through, or the same thing that Ron went through in the Harry Potter films. And I talk about this. Ron in the early Harry Potter films, he's fine, but so many of his lines are given away to Harry and Hermione. The same thing happens here with Annabeth. So many of her lines are given to Percy, one who shouldn't know anything about the gods. He should be clueless. Or given to Grover. Like, they take away so much of her. Like, why didn't she go to the underworld? I'm really passionate about this.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. One of the biggest mistakes in this show, outside of the expository dialogue, is the fact that they decided to do the biggest controversial decision, in my opinion, and give Percy all this, like, PhD-worthy knowledge of Greek mythology right out of the gate.
And that should have went to Annabeth. Like, why isn't that just Annabeth?
Yeah, I mean, that's the precipice of her whole character. Like,
yeah.
Why, like, you're taking away, you know, she's a freaking daughter of Athena.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here, guys? Percy, some of his charm, in fact, most of his charm, comes from him being, like, completely big-hearted and clueless.
Yeah.
You know, he has a big heart and a lot of strength, but doesn't know where to guide it, you know, and Annabeth is the one that guides him in doing that, and Grover kind of assists in doing that. But at the end of the day, we all know it's Annabeth and Percy that are, like, the main two that, you know, move things along. And it's just, I saw none of that. There was...
Frustrated.
It was very frustrating.
They take her out of scenes, too. It's like, why... Like, she doesn't go to meet Hades. Like, she's not in that. And it's like, what? No, she should go. There's so many changes in this that I don't understand. Like, why do 4 pearls? Why do 4 pearls? Why, like, there's some of the changes I'm like, fine, you know what? You're gonna cut the summer solstice. Like, some of the changes I'm like, okay, like, it's fine. I'm okay with some of these changes. But when you make pointless changes that don't do anything with the plot, like, the 4 pearls thing is the biggest issue I have.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind that too much because at that point I was already kind of like just out of it. I'm like, nah, this show is not good. But yeah, you know, speaking of the whole Hades thing, right before I came here, I saw an advertisement on a YouTube video for Percy Jackson on Disney Plus, and it straight up shows like Percy finding the bolt in his bag. And it's like, we're just gonna show that as an advertisement now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. You know, it's not like a simple cameo like in Ahsoka or something like that with Hayden Christensen. But, like, this is, like, a pivotal plot point.
Yeah.
And we're just going to, like, throw it out there because it looks cool.
Because it is called Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief.
Yeah. So it's just like, come on, guys.
Let's talk about the casino scene because Rick...
Let's talk about
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about that.
Rick Riordan, before that episode came out, was hyping it. He was like, listen, I can pull up his tweet. He was like, this is better than the movie. We're going to do it right. And the casino scene, like, I was buying everything. I honestly was drinking the Kool-Aid up to episode 6, I believe that was. Like, I was really enjoying it. I couldn't understand why you and Cheyenne, our other friend, weren't. And then the casino scene comes. And what were they thinking? Like, what?
Yeah, if there's anything that sums up my, you know, pain and suffering of the show, it's that episode. It's like the biggest microcosm of this whole thing, where explain.
Show nothing.
Not even find out anything. I mean, they realize, like, right out of the gate, they are already saying, like, what the problem is with the Lotus Hotel. And I'm like, well, this whole episode now is pointless.
Yeah.
Why do I care? Because they already know what the problem is, and why would they have any reason to get caught up in the magic or, like, confusion of it all and eat the lotus flowers and, you know, have it be their own mistakes, which, by the way, makes the character more interesting when it's their own mistakes that lead to, like, them wasting time or, you know, have their adventure kind of put to the side and all that. But, yeah, no, they also made a stupid decision to have the lotus flower be in the air.
Yeah,
like, it's coming through the vents. I'm like, really?
it takes away the whole mystery of it. Like, it's like why even go to this casino, like, to go see Hermes, which I don't mind that change, but like it just takes away everything. And then you give Grover this super odd plot. It's just weird to me.
Yeah, I actually do mind the Hermes change quite
You
a
do?
bit.
Okay.
Because I always liked and this might be a personal thing, you know, if you like it, that's great. But, I mean, I always like the idea of, like, these elements of Greek mythology blending into modern day. But, like, some of them are kind of under the gods' radar, where they are kind of aware of it but don't do anything about it. But they don't really like touch it, so they're kind of like acknowledging they exist.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of the gods not being there or involved in it. You know, so to have like a god just being there so casually, I couldn't really get behind it. I thought it was so stupid, and kind of felt like he was there just to service the plot and move it forward rather than, you know, be there for like what Hermes would be there for.
Yeah, it's just so disappointing. I feel like we're being super harsh on it, but
No, we're
like
not.
I want to be like I want to be honest. Like it was you know, looking back, like did I drink the Kool-Aid of this? Yeah. But looking back, I'm like so sad about so much of this stuff, like, and there's great parts. Sally Jackson, amazing. Virginia plays her excellent. I love her.
She was the best actress out of all of,
oh yeah,
of everyone.
Amazing. Poseidon, like I really enjoyed him too. I do like Lance Reddick in it. And I can see there's so much potential. There really is. Like, you have 3 amazing young actors. And I don't blame them at all. They're kids. But you gotta give them good dialogue. And so I know we're getting to season 2, and I have hope that stuff will change, and I hope they see that too, because I think that episode 6 casino scene, a lot of people were like, wait a second.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, not only good dialogue, but good direction as to deliver that dialogue. And I know, you know, directors need to walk on that balance beam of like, hey, where do I, you know, put my hand, like fist down, versus like letting an actor work in their space. But I think especially with children actors, that you kind of need to be a little more of a guiding hand. And I think they would be open to that. I mean, I can't speak for them. I don't know what happened behind scenes or what dynamics occurred. But it seems like, based on what we have seen, you know, they would be open to, you know, something like that. And
there's potential.
Yeah, there's
like,
so much potential because these are great actors.
Yeah, like Arian plays Grover really well. Like Walker and all the behind the scenes stuff. I'm like, that's Percy Jackson. Leah, same with her. Like, and again, they're kids and they're gonna grow into these roles. I hope we can get through all 5 books of Percy Jackson. Like, same with, I hate to compare to Ron, Harry, and Hermione, but like they weren't good actors and they really grow into it. And so, I will give a pass for them, but I do think like you just need to write better dialogue for them and the visual effects too. Like we can go into that, but it's just sad. So
yeah, I mean, I was hoping for so much more and got abundantly less. So I don't know.
Season 2, please. It's like my least favorite book, but like please.
Yeah, I mean it's. Sea of Monsters is definitely everyone's least favorite Percy Jackson book, but kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated show, everyone says, oh yeah, every episode's great, but we all agree that the least great one is The Great Divide. I would say Sea of Monsters is like the Great Divide of Percy Jackson, which is kind of funny because the book cover, the original book cover, has like a chasm in. But anyway, so what do you guys think of Percy Jackson? Did you like it? Did you think the movie was better?
Oh gosh.
Are you excited for a season 2? Let us know in those comments down below, and you know, we'd be happy to hear your takes on this tape.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's get on to our next little review here for for Ung. No, for Aang. So Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh man.
I'll go first on this
yes,
one.
you go first.
I love the animated show. I really love it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people really love it. I watched it out of order on Nickelodeon when I was younger, and every time I come back from school, it was always on, and I loved it. Katara was my biggest crush growing up, and just all these characters were likable. They grew, and they made like very, very game-changing decisions that a lot of characters and during those on Nickelodeon and during that time wouldn't make those like plot deviating, course changing decisions. And I thought it was so revolutionary for the time, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. It's one of the most perfect shows out there. Now, when the movie came out, I'm just like, oh, this is gonna be so cool. Like the whole Percy Jackson effect, basically.
Yeah.
For you, it's kind of like
Deja vu.
Yeah. So we see the movie. We didn't see the movie. We try not to remember that movie.
Yeah.
And listen, Shyamalan has made some great movies in the past, but my gosh, this is not one of them.
No.
Take 5 guys to lift a rock. Anyway, so that's that. That's in the past. Years later, we get this show with a very promising cast.
Mm-hmm.
But before it comes out, the creators left the show. The original creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender left the show due to creative differences, I believe. And which is a shame because that really made a lot more people skeptical about this project, including myself. And Netflix comes out, delivers this show. And honestly, after watching it all the way through, I gotta say it was really solid. It was solid, but it wasn't anything greater than solid.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that it captured an element of the spirit of the original show, and I knew right out of the gate before I even started watching it, it's limited to 8 episodes. That's not the filmmaker's fault. That's the constraints they're put on. And I thought that it was considering that and what they tried to accomplish within those 8 episodes, I thought overall they did a very solid job. With a lot of flaws in there, but a very solid, impressive job.
I feel like this is such deja vu of the conversation we just had. But let me just say this. I did not grow up watching Avatar. I actually watched it a month before it came out. Mm-hmm. Because all our guy friends were saying, go watch this. And so I don't have the nostalgia factor to this. But I was looking forward to it because this cast is awesome. And I really like the anime. It became one of my favorite shows. And this show, I'm like not complete opposite of you, but I did not enjoy it as much as you did. Mm. And maybe that's because I came into this world kind of later, but I have some major issues, especially with one character I have a major issue with. And again, I get it, 8 episodes, you gotta make changes. Totally understand that. But this was not my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely get that. And I know what one of your gripes is.
Yeah, I want to talk about it.
Yeah, so y'all know how I just mentioned that my biggest crush growing up was Katara. So Katara in this show, she is, I think, played by a very fitting actress. However, kind of similar to the Percy Jackson situation, the direction she was given, man, it's like someone forgot to tell her to like emote face like with her face. Her countenance does not shift. Like Katara is inherently a very like in a good way, not like a sexist way, but like a good way, like a very emotional, passionate character, but also intelligent and like powerful and strong and all that. And she's able to capture that. This actress, and the direction she's given, is able to capture that here and there, But like when it comes down to these very pivotal, iconic moments for Katara, it's not there. It's like a robot.
This, this is such deja vu. Because it's literally the Annabeth situation all over again.
Mm-hmm.
She is given, where Annabeth was given no dialogue, Katara is giving the worst dialogue. Like, awful dialogue. And I don't think it's the actress, Kiranto, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I don't think it's her at all. I think she's absolutely incredible. I think they really did not know what to do with Katara. Like, Katara in the show is so much, like you said, emotional, fun, like a mother figure. Sokka has said, like, when I think of our mother, I think of you. Where was that? She's given, like, this god-awful dialogue. Aang, come back. And it's just like this, oh my gosh, it's so disappointing to see such amazing female characters that aren't done right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, kind of going along with the criticism of this show, this also does suffer from a similar symptom of the Percy Jackson show being expository dialogue. Mm-hmm. Katara is actually one of those characters that delivers most of it, but even in the animated show, the original source material, there still was a lot of heavy expository dialogue. Granted, not as much as in this show.
Yeah.
And I understand that you are limited to 8 episodes, and I get that. However, there's so much you could do with the visual storytelling to make up for that, rather than telling the audience. And there's a lot of we'll get into this after our review here, but there's a lot of adaptations that do such a great job of the visual storytelling element to kind of capture that. And I think a really good example in this show of where if they lean more into doing it this way, it would have been better for like the Katara aspect. But like Zuko and Iroh, their relationship, I thought, while of course the original source material is better, this one, with what they tried to do, I felt kept that same spirit.
Oh, I agree.
And it was so well done, and a lot of it was visual storytelling to catch the audience up on like why Iroh is the way he is, why Zuko is the way he is, and I'm like, why can't we do more of this?
Yeah. Oh no, I 100% agree. I think their relationship was one of the strongest point. Now, Dallas, who plays Zuko, does play him differently. But I really enjoyed it. I love their relationship that they build in here, and I think it's one of the strongest part. Again, it is faltered a little bit because, and I don't know why they rushed this. They really give him a redemption arc so early, and I'm like, why? Like, I want a villain. Like, you don't need to give me a redemption arc, but I'm sure they were like, we don't know if we're gonna get a season 2 or a season 3, so. That was kind of disappointing not to see just like this revengeful person. It's more of like, we're gonna give you redemption right away.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, in the original show, I believe in season 1, they did kind of hint at like the idea that Zuko is not all inherently evil, and so I think again, when you're limited to 8 episodes, you can, you only limited to so much, and I think considering those constraints, they did a really good job with that. But I do understand there are so many corners they did cut, or changes that they made where I'm like, you didn't need to do. Sorry, a car just absolutely blasted their horn. So there are so many changes that they made where I'm like, you didn't need to do that. And I get that like adaptations do need to make changes. Like Last of Us is a great example, but at the end of the day, the changes you make gotta be worth it. And I think in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the changes they made definitely did not work for the most part.
One of the changes that kind of bothered me a lot, and I kept saying this, I'm like, I swear to God, if I hear Aang say one more time, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to lose it.
Yeah, Aang is definitely a very underwhelming character in this show.
I like him. Like, I do. I just feel like they repeat for him. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to know what I'm doing. I'm like, I know you don't know what you're doing. It's okay.
Yeah, that's where it's like visual storytelling, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, him crashing into a rock, you know, like the iconic in the intro, him crashing into a rock having fun. That within itself demonstrates how incompetent he is at, you know, this time of his life and like the burden he's given.
Yeah.
You could easily visually storytell that. And instead it's just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the avatar. I cannot let this happen. And they do in the show.
Yeah.
They do hints of the expository. I get it, but again, it's hints. Keep in mind the keyword is hints. But yeah, go ahead.
You missed a part.
Yeah.
You said he's the avatar. He's the avatar of the 4 elements because they kept saying that. Too.
Yeah, and by the way, before we go on to like a positive, I was gonna say about this show, they really do not focus on the whole like, oh, he's got to master all 4 elements. They focus on some ideas of incompetency,
Yeah.
but there's no urgency like to learn all 4 elements. And in fact, he goes to this water temple to like learn the water bending. And I believe in season 1 of the original show, he's water bending a little bit and trying to figure it out. But here, he doesn't even do that.
Yeah.
Katara does a little more waterbending training, like when they had more downtime. I'm like, why isn't Aang doing that? Yeah, he had time to visit the Avatar, his former life incarnation, but you're telling me there was no time to fit in a scene with him, like, at least practicing some waterbending and, like, maybe bringing on that pressure of, like, hey, or maybe him failing at waterbending, you know, and then someone telling him, like, hey, this kid's the Avatar, you know, and then that's all you need. That's all you need to demonstrate incompetency, you know, and people's perspective of, like, Aang at that moment as the Avatar. So I was very let down by that.
Yeah. I think it, and we'll get into both of these shows and kind of, like, where they faltered, but, like, they just tell, not show, but I do want to say a positive because I feel like I've been poo-pooing on both of these. The visual effects are amazing in Avatar. Oh my
Standing
goodness.
ovation, guys. Standing ovation.
And I don't know if they were given more time. I know this was announced in 2018 and they shot and everything. So I don't know if it was more time, but like the ending, it's awesome. Like that battle's so cool. The bending, you take, you know, M. Night Shyamalan's version, and then you compare it to this one. It's night and day. It's awesome.
It is night and day. Yeah. I like what you did there.
I didn't realize I did it.
No, but I absolutely agree with you. The visual effects are just so beautiful, so well done. I mean, like, I was so impressed by the first episode, the first scene alone, you know, with how they did it, the whole dominating of the Fire Nation barging in and destroying the air temple as well. That was so well done. And I thought that was a very interesting point to start the story, rather than like the flashback and all that. But I'm like, hey, you know, if we're doing it this way, I think they're doing a great job of it this far.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, there's a lot of other great elements about the show. The casting for Sokka, I thought was really great. I know there's some controversy. I didn't look too much into it. But I know that I really appreciate his performance, and it showed. I think he did a phenomenal job. Iroh, there was a learning curve for me. I kind of had to get used to the whole, like, okay, this guy, the actor, I can't remember his name, is doing his version of this character. And at times he is channeling, you know, Mako or Mako. And it shows. And I think it just took a little while for me to kind of appreciate that and get that. I think midway through the show, I was a little more on board. And, you know, overall the acting is great outside what we said about Katara.
Yeah.
And again, with what they did, with what they were limited to, I think that's always a filmmaker's, like, goal is to do the best you can with what you're limited to.
Yeah.
And, you know, they, again, probably could have made some better decisions here and there to make the show so much better. But overall, I would say I had a good time. I had a solid time.
There's a lot of potential. It's the same thing. There's so much potential for this. It has been announced we're getting into season 2 and 3, and I hope they shoot them back to back, just so it comes out quicker, because we're not getting this till like end of 2025, which is just unfortunate. But they shoot 2 and 3 together, that'd be awesome. But again, there's so much potential and things you can fix. Like, these aren't like impossible changes you need to make. Like, you have so much. You get better dialogue and everything, and
doesn't even change your budget.
Yeah, it really doesn't. You just gotta do a better job at that. And so I feel like I have really high hopes for season 2 and 3. I might have not enjoyed it as much as you, but there's so much potential that you can see. Yeah.
So I guess before we move on to our next topic, how many elements would you give the Avatar: The Last Airbender Netflix show? Out of 10.
The first thing that came to me was 7.2, and I'm gonna stick with that because
0.2.
Yeah, I know, I'm going decimals. It's really weird now. I'm changing my vibe.
That's interesting. Like, not 0.5 or...
It's like in the middle of 7 and 7.5.
Not even 0.25.
Stop it. No, I think I see a lot more potential for this show, and I really feel like there's just little things that you change, and I would have enjoyed it more, Katara. But like little things like that, and then I would give this more. And I'm okay with a lot of the changes. I'm okay with the runtime. I'm okay with everything. It's just slight little changes, and you would get me up to an 8 or a 9, or even a 7.9.
Yeah, I'd say, considering I thought it was solid, I'd say it was definitely a 7.5 to maybe 8 type of show for me. Like, again, I enjoyed it. I would overall say I enjoyed it. But again, I will not disregard the obvious flaws it does have, and I hope that they acknowledge these flaws and going to future seasons, and they adjust. I think that's always the best thing you can do. Is, unlike a certain Star Wars trilogy, rather than completely doubling back, you double down on what you have already done and try to make it better and reinforce it and fix what needs to be fixed for the betterment and continuing of a really good story and narrative, rather than just like immediately kind of impulsively just kind of like, oh, we need to do this, budget says this, blah blah blah.
So my question is, because we talked about 2 of these TV shows that are adaptations of great things. Like, people love Avatar and people love Percy Jackson.
Why would anyone love them?
Okay.
It's garbage. No.
And we kind of have touched on this a little bit, that the biggest issue with both of these shows is dialogue. Where do they go wrong here, Ethan? Like, I'm kind of confused. Like, because you had the author for Percy Jackson. You had him, like, as a reference. And we don't know how much control he had, but you had him as a reference. And then you even, like, you had the guys who created the TV show Avatar on board. Like, where do you go wrong?
I mean, at the end of the day, a bad script, like bad dialogue, does make a difference. It's kind of like walking around with a garbage skeleton. Ideally you want a better skeleton so you can, walk from place to place, or like go from place to place so much easier. But, if you don't have a good script, you're not going to have a good walking narrative, so the dialogue just needs to be fixed. I think if you again go with that same dialogue you're given, if for some, God, I hope they don't go this way, but for some reason, if they don't realize that the expository dialogue is the problem, that the directing needs to adjust for that and compensate to make the line deliveries from these actors, get the best line deliveries from these actors as possible to like really make up for that. Because if anyone can deliver like garbage dialogue, I mean, Nicolas Cage is proof of this.
Yeah.
He's been given garbage dialogue after garbage dialogue time after time. but yet his performances with that garbage dialogue are so well done, like, and so like so much heart is behind it, and he really goes all out each time. Same thing with like someone like Tim Curry, you know, both of those actors do such a great job with what they're given. That doesn't even matter what they do.
Yeah.
Like, as long as they do a great job, people are going to be interested, and that's why like they are so sought after for like movies and so bankable, is because of that. So I think that if you can, you know, compensate that way at the least, then I'd say it would be so much better to the benefit of the not only the filmmakers but the show as well at large.
And even the actors too, because again, I hate to keep touching on this, but like if you give actors good dialogue, they're gonna go far with it. You know, it's so disappointing that both of these shows kind of failed their main female lead with Katara and Annabeth. And I truly think if you gave them better dialogue, I think both of those shows would have been elevated to, you know, a higher level if you just gave them better dialogue, because you really ruined both of those characters. And it's so unfortunate because I think you got two amazing actresses who can play this role. They can play this role. So give them good dialogue, and I think you can go so much farther with both Percy Jackson Season 2 and Avatar Season 2 and 3.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess regarding the Avatar Last Airbender show, what do you guys think about it? You guys think it was better than the original show? Do you guys think it's at odds with it? Do you think it's so much worse, like Annmarie did?
Sorry.
No, let us know in those comments down below, and we'd be happy to hear your thoughts on your takes on those tapes. So now with our final topic of the day, we're kind of culminate everything together here and talk about a little thing known as an adaptation and what makes a good adaptation. So, Annmarie, what on earth do you think, or Arrakis, I guess, in your case, qualifies as a really good adaptation, whether it be from a book or like a former animated show or whatever it may be, to the film or TV medium? What do you think makes a great adaptation?
This is so funny because we just got off one of the best adaptations ever in Dune Part 2, and now we're talking about Percy Jackson and Avatar, who kind of fail in my eyes. I'm okay with adaptations changing stuff. Listen, you need to change stuff for a different medium. You went from a movie to a TV show for Percy Jackson, and you went from an anime to a TV show for Avatar. So I'm okay with stuff being changed. Those changes need to be there for a good reason. And I think Dune does this really well. Especially with Part 2, like I've talked about it before, Lady Jessica, they changed a lot about her, and Chani, they change a lot about her, but it elevates their character for it. So if you're going to change adaptation, and if you're going to change stuff, you need to do it for a good reason.
Absolutely, I would agree with you on that. Last of Us is another fine example of that, like I mentioned before. I mean, the show does take, in fact, a whole episode deviates from the original theme of the game, and it was probably considered to be the best episode of the whole show, which was, I can't remember the characters, but it was the one with Nick Offerman, and that you had these characters in the game that had a very like intensive, like they hate each other kind of mentality and all that, but they stuck together, and it had such a very rotten, bitter kind of theme to it. And then this one, like in the show, they like change it to a very loving and wholesome and emotional kind of storytelling. But at the end of the day, it did what it needed to do and have our main characters see what has become of what has been and get that same lesson out of this journey. And if you're able to do that, I think that's great. I actually think that episode, the way they did that episode, is superior to how it was handled in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that goes for a lot of how the show worked.
And that's crazy when like an adaptation can really excel from its original, and that's awesome that stuff can happen like that. And I think another thing I want to point out is I don't think it's ever a bad thing to have the person who created the original on too, if you can.
I mean, Neil Druckmann, I think his name was,
Mm-hmm.
was one of the executive producers and writer. I believe writer. I could be wrong about that, but I know at least executive producer on that show for The Last of Us, and he was, of course, one of the head honchos of Naughty Dog to really pull together Last of Us.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he did a phenomenal job, and I did remember listening to him on those post-episode podcasts.
Yeah.
With him going over with the director and showrunner, what went into each episode and like the themes and why they made those changes. In fact, I think Percy Jackson probably could have benefited from something like that, where with a post-episode podcast.
Yeah.
I love all the stuff they did with the marketing, with the kids and all that. I think that was fun and fine. But if you really wanted to, get your audience invested and find out those changes, rather than like doing it the whole, find out via my tweet or like thread or whatever, have a conversation, have someone sit down with him and have us listen in. I think that would really do it justice.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be good or bad, you can at least find out what was going on in the director's mind.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you bring that up. I think also like the author or writer or whoever creator can give such an insight on characters too.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to keep picking on Katara, but Katara, I don't think they understood her character. And in the show, like, there's so much meaning to Katara. She's this mother figure. She's burdened that she lost her mom and all that. And I just don't think that was, like, shown in that. And so when you can truly have the authors come on, like, you don't need them to be writers or producers or anything. But if you can just, like, ask them, like, tell me about this character. Tell me what makes this character click. And let them talk to you through it. So.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you on that. Something else I did want to bring up when we're talking about adaptations is, I don't know about you, but based on what I've read from the Dune book, as I'm only, I was initially 186 pages in of the original Dune book, and then I stopped because I wanted to watch the movies first before, getting to where the book, was. So I stopped where the first movie did. And now that I saw the second movie, I'm rereading it to kind of catch myself up, and now I'm going to read the whole book. Hell yeah. But no, as I was rereading it, especially the beginning, I really did appreciate how they handled the movie, at least the first one, so much more. Mm-hmm. It's arguably maybe better than the book. I mean, I'm not sure if that's a controversial statement, but again, I'm not that far into the book.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can shoot me with an arrow all you want. I don't know. But, I'm just kind of making that statement from what I've read so far.
Yeah.
My opinion may change. But honestly, I was very impressed with how Denis was able to take these characters and their backstories and like throw us into like this very paranoid kind of society that is all about planning and, procedure and all that. And just kind of like explain it with almost exclusively visual storytelling. Mm-hmm. And when it's dialogue storytelling, it's very passive and quick but like so obvious at the same time.
Yeah.
It's weird. Because usually when you think passive and quick, you're like, okay, don't pay attention to it. But it's done so well where it feels like, oh yeah, it's like that person said that, so it's obvious. Mm-hmm. And it's engaging too. So, I mean, what more could you ask for? In the book, it feels more like we're hearing about this, like saying, oh yeah, the company, whatever, is like, well, that's this, and blah, blah, blah. And that's going to be important later because blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's like, okay, I get it. And it's not bad. I'm enjoying the book. I'm loving it. But it's if we're going to be comparing here, I think that's one of the cases where the movie, again, thus far, is better than the book, than the source material.
I love how we always circle back to Dune. I think it's awesome.
It's our destiny.
No, I agree. I think, it's those changes that you have to make from different, like, what you're taking from. If it's a movie to a book, if it's a book to a movie, if it's an anime to a TV show, you gotta make those changes for it to make sense.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, with a good cut of meat or something, you...
What?
Don't judge me on this.
Okay.
With a good cut of meat, sometimes it's good to have, like, some good fat there to provide flavor. But, like, when you're cooking it, but you don't want too much fat on there. You need to know what fat to cut out, how much to cut out before, to kind of cook with it.
Are you hungry?
Very.
Okay.
But it's beside the point. No, I think, like, if you're going to adapt something, the ability to find out what is the excess fat to take out of your good old steak, before you cook it, I think definitely benefits. And when you add on, like, marinate it with the good stuff too, take out that excess fat, put in the good sauces or whatever you want to put in there. It is real good, and I think everyone benefits it, mostly Ethan's taste buds.
Oh, God.
I'm really hungry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good way to look at adaptations from source materials.
I agree. Yeah, I got nothing else. You, like, covered it.
Oh, dang. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think Percy Jackson and I was going to say Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief.
Oh.
But Percy Jackson and Avatar can both learn from
Yeah.
those adaptations. And, I mean, again, it's not really big changes. It's like just small stuff early on that you need to change that, again, it's very simple. That can make it worlds of difference.
It can only go up from here.
It can only go up. I try to tell myself that every day. Yeah, so anyway, what do you guys think makes a really good adaptation of something? Do you think that the source material is always guaranteed to be better? Do you think that the adaptation is always going to be worse? Or do you think it's always going to be better? Or should it always be better? Who knows? I mean, everything's subjective. It's art. Let us know your thoughts, your takes on those tapes, on those comments down below. And I guess that was our final topic. So this has been Cassette Take, where you can eject wherever you want, but please don't forget to rewind. I have been Ethan.
I have been Annmarie, the master of 4 elements.
The master of all 4 elements.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see how the CGI works with her and taking down the enemy. But yeah, thank you for joining us here, and whether it be any of our comments or any of our questions we asked you early on or now or whatever you're thinking, let us know your takes on our tapes down below. Have a great day, and peace.
See you later, Ong.